Hi, this is Tim Queenie, editor of Ocean Navigator magazine, and I'm talking with Peter Swanson, who is a marine freelance writer and a delivery captain with a 50-ton license. And he wrote an article for us in the Power of Voyaging section of the July-August issue of Ocean Navigator called Staying Dry in a Mexican Gale, wherein he discusses delivering a Great Harbor N-37 from Florida to Ensenada, Mexico. And the meat of the piece is about his efforts to get through the Gulf of Tehuantepec. Let's talk a little bit about that. Peter, how you doing?
Good. Good morning.
Yeah. Hey, so in this piece, you are delivering a Great Harbor N-37. Can you tell us a little bit about the boat, something about its engines? Just give us a little background on that boat.
You know, this was like one of the earlier models of the N-37, and the buyer was a fellow who was in the medical device business in Hawaii, and he was a ardent sport fisherman, but he didn't want a sport fish boat per se because all the great fishing in Hawaii is just a mile offshore. It's deep water there, and he felt he could do it more economically with a trawler. So he ordered a customized version of the N-37 from the Great Harbor factory. It had like a sport fishing kind of fly bridge. It was really funky. Mm-hmm. It had a fish hold and ice maker and stuff like that. And the reason that we were delivering it on its own bottom to Hawaii was, well, partially because of the glory of it all in the age of heroic marketing, I call it, but also because there had just been a dock strike in the West Coast had just finished up, and there was a lot of cargo that was amassed at the ports, and that driven the price of delivering it on a ship to the point where, given the price of diesel back then, it was like $1 a gallon or less. It made some economic sense also to just drive it. As far as the engines are concerned, the boat normally came with twin Yanmar, 50 horsepower engines, but he wanted luggers, which is the engine of choice for Nordhavens. And for the life of me, I went and looked at the lugger website to see whether it was 100 or 40 horse lugger. Those are the lowest horsepower models, and I couldn't tell you for sure which it was, but they were bigger and heavier and slower turning than the Yanmars, and probably a little less economical to run, but quite bulletproof.
Did he say why he preferred the luggers over the Yanmars?
I think he, the lugger reputation for being an indestructible engine, and by the way, that boat subsequently went on to go all over the South Pacific, which is pretty unusual for a small power boat, and particularly one with twin screws. So maybe it was a good choice based on the subsequent history of the vessel. Anyway, I think he wanted the same kind of reliability that Nordhaven touts in its engines. From my point of view, the Yanmars would have probably been a little less stressful because you wouldn't probably sweat fuel quite as much, which they ended up doing on the Hawaii leg of the trip, which is about 2,200 or 2,300 miles, as I recall, and I think they got into the Honolulu area with about only 40 gallons left, and as you know, we added 500 gallons of fuel because the boat was never designed to cross oceans.
Right, and that was the leg from Ensenada to Hawaii.
Right, that was the leg I didn't thankfully participate on because it was just 14 days of same old.
Right.
I got the good part of the delivery. Got to see interesting things, meet new people, and encounter a lot of third world docks. So.
Right. Now, well, you mentioned that auxiliary tanks were used for that Ensenada Hawaii leg. How did they do that? Did they use fuel bladders? How was that done?
No, actually, this was Ken Fickett's the president of Mirage Manufacturing, which makes the Great Harbor trawlers. And sometimes I think he's inspired in his thinking. He went to Sam's Club and purchased 75 5-gallon gas cans. because there's so much storage space on the N37, and it's got a huge lazarette. It's got a big bilge spaces. He was able to just line the whole boat with 5-gallon cans. And think about it. I mean, a bladder, all it takes is sliding around the deck a little bit, and you've lost all your auxiliary fuel. But 75 cans is a lot of redundancy. And of course, there was a fuel transfer pump involved in this too. So, and you could precisely measure how much fuel you were putting in pretty easily just by counting the number of cans you had unloaded. Now that wasn't quite enough, so they did also put two 50-gallon plastic drums as well, which effectively doubled the fuel load from just under 500 gallons to probably around 950.
Oh, I see.
So
going
and that gave the owner a Christmas present for all his guy friends once we got to Hawaii. I mean, they all got gas cans for Christmas, I'm sure.
Right. So going back to the Gulf of Tehuantepec crossing, and when you were in Central America in general, how were you getting your weather data when you were on this trip?
Well, I've always just obviously we're in port, we'd have access to the internet, but when we needed a forecast underway, I have just a simple old single sideband receiver, and I tune into the National Weather Service. Interestingly enough, as far as the Tehuantepec storm, I mean, we knew when we left port that it was coming, and when we got there, it was there too. So it wasn't really a surprise. But you can listen to the Caribbean forecast to pretty much get an idea of whether there's going to be a Tehuantepec gale based on the fronts coming through the Caribbean. Because what happens is that's the air that's flowing through the mountains that creates the gale on the west coast there.
Right.
So just a simple receiver and a headset, and a receiver with a BFO beat frequency oscillator control knob on it is all you need to get single sideband weather, and that's what we use.
Oh, I see. Okay. And now you mentioned the piece that you had some interactions with the Mexican Navy. What was that like?
Actually, it was very positive, almost all the way through Mexico. And it's not something I would have expected. At first I thought they were coming at us to board us. It was like a patrol craft coming at us, and all they wanted to do was to warn us that we were heading into a gale. So that was it was nice. They actually read the forecast to us in English, even though they were pronouncing it, phonetically.
Right.
And when I said that we were aware of the gale and what our tactics were going to be, they said, "Yeah, that's a good idea, and you can always call us on the radio if something happens." So,
right.
So that was positive. And it was also positive when we clear into the ports, which is not always the case in some of these Latin American countries, like for example the Dominican Republic, where it's so corrupt. It's eye opening. I didn't find that in Mexico. I'm sure others have, but I didn't.
Oh, and you used radar for sort of staying along. Your strategy was to go along very close to the beach to stay out of the big waves that developed from that northerly wind. So, what was it like using the radar? Was that challenging?
No, actually, the Gulf of Tehuantepec, the shoreline there is a good target, and so it returns very nicely. We got there. We arrived in the Gulf in daylight, and it was immediately apparent that the cartography for the area was flawed because, and I don't remember if it was a Navionics or CMAP, but it was a Furuno chart plotter. So whichever one was in there, it doesn't really matter because they got their data from probably a Mexican government source or some other government source, and it showed us actually inland as we were a half mile or a mile offshore. Right. So it was a couple miles off, and so we weren't going to be able to rely on that in the pitch black. But during daylight, I was able to see, that the radar return was good because I could see the shore, and I could, and so we just used the radar. We just kept it on one of the outer edges of one of the radar rings, set it on a half mile or half mile for the rings, and just kept get the ring touching the shore, touching the return for the shore, and that's how we were able to keep an interval off the beach.
Great. So you sounds like you're ready to do this trip again.
I'd do it again in that boat. I'm sitting on my own boat right now, which is a Morgan Island 41 sailboat.
Yeah.
And it's got like an enclosure around the cockpit, but even so, the pressure of the water hitting that enclosure would spray through the zippers. I mean, it's not something I would want to do in a sailboat, or at least not in my sailboat. This, and also the fact that the trawler only drew 3 feet. So it had the kind of bottom where if you do touch, it's easy to back your way off. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have a centralized keel that would post hole itself if you ran into the sand and have to deal with that. So it was a good boat for that trip, and I'd do it again in that boat.
All right, great. Well, thanks for talking to us at Ocean Navigator Conversations. Peter Swanson, freelance writer and delivery captain. If you need any deliveries done, get in touch. Peter's happy to do them.
Yeah, that's true, and especially with this economy.
All right, thanks a lot, Peter.
All right, man.
All right, bye.
Bye, kid.